Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Crafting for Profit Live, the show where we help you turn your creativity into a thriving business. Today, we're talking about something that most of us crafters don't always love to think about: year end finances. I mean, to be real, I don't really like to think about finances any time of the year, but the year end is like the worst. um, but getting everything organized can save you like a ton of time when it comes to tax season. So, we're going to talk all about that today.
So Corey or we're not accountants. We are not experts. So we have an expert guest with us today. So we are happy to welcome Nate from Cookie Finance, and he helps creative business owners get their finances in order so they can feel confident and prepared when it comes to their money. And we literally are practicing what we preach here because we both use Cookie Finance. So just wanted to plug that in there.
So, this episode, as always, is pre recorded. But if you are watching on YouTube with the live premiere, we are chatting in the comments. If you're listening later on YouTube or to the podcast, check out the video description because we've got all the links you need to learn more about Nate, to connect. Yeah, let's dive in. All right, Nate. Since our audience is probably new to you, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Cookie Finance?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to talk with you both. I'm the founder of Cookie Finance. We are accountants for content creators in all sort of creative types. We work with creators to help them with their bookkeeping, their quarterly taxes, end of the year taxes, getting their LLC set up, bank account set up, get the EIN, really taking people from that hobby to a real legitimate business and then helping them be smart with their finances and accounting and taxes going forward. I've been a CPA for 12 plus years. Although my wife did just remind me a couple of days ago, she's like, Nate, it's not 12 plus years, it's like 15 plus years. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I'm getting older. I think I'm stuck like from a few years ago. But yeah, I've been a CPA for a long time. And I absolutely just love working with creators. I have two sister-in-laws who are content creators, so it's very near and dear to me and been a part of my life for a long time.
That's amazing. And yes, time as you grow older, it is like it was just 2000, like last year, right? All right. So a lot of our audience feels very overwhelmed by the money side of this craft business. So, what's the very first step you recommend that someone take to get their finances organized, especially at the end of the year?
Yeah, for me, it's all about getting those hygiene things put in place very first and upfront. And let me just start by saying right away that there is no shame or embarrassment on where you are right now. I'd say 90 plus percent of people who come to us don't have anything in place. They don't have LLC, separate bank account, their financials organized. Uh, you are creatives, you're entrepreneurs, you're busy, and also doing that takes up a ton of time. So I know we talk with a lot of people and they say, "Oh, I'm even so embarrassed to even say where I'm at right now." We've worked with creators who are making $1 million a year who still have nothing, completely disorganized. So there is absolutely no shame or anything about where you are. So when I talk about these things, if you don't have it, just know you are right in line with everyone else around you. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't get these hygiene things put in place. So for us, the big things to getting you prepared for year end, getting your financials all put in order is first getting the LLC set up. I think that is a big mental thing also for creatives of taking their business from just treating it like a hobby, a fun little thing to, oh no, this is actually a real business and I'm going to treat it like a real business. For most states, it's just a few $100s to set up an LLC, unless you're in California. And I'm really sorry, it's a lot more in California than most other states. But for most states, it's a few $100 to set up the LLC, getting EIN. It gives you a lot of really good personal protection of your own personal assets if anyone were to sue you or anything were to happen to you. But it's also the foundational piece to getting that business bank account, a separate bank account for your business to one day becoming an S Corp and a lot of other things. So what I tell people, get the LLC. It's cheap. You don't pay more in taxes. You don't save more in taxes. But it's kind of that first big step to treating yourself like a real business and get things put in place. So that's number one. Get the LLC, get a separate bank account. That is the next big thing. Almost everyone who comes to us, they are working out of their personal bank account. So they're getting money in their personal bank account from their business. All their expenses are coming out of their personal bank account. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening to this, when you get to the year end and your accountant says, hey, give me all your income and expenses for your business. And you're going through hundreds and hundreds and thousands of transactions, trying to pull apart every single last little one. And you're like, I don't remember, was this Amazon purchase, business or personal? Let me go through my cart. Let me look at this. And it just takes up hours and hours of your time. Have a separate business bank account. Get all of your income and expenses moved into that separate account, separate credit card too, if you like to use credit cards. And those two things are going to put you on a really good path. And then if you want to take it one step further, just on a monthly basis with your separate bank account, just start recording all those income and expenses just in a simple spreadsheet, just so you're tracking these things. But if you just do those few things, you'll be set yourself up really well for kind of the next stage of getting things in order. But that right there will save you tons and tons of hours and put you on a really good path.
I first set up my LLC in California. So I used to live in California and that's where I set it up. And when I moved to Washington and transferred it, I was like, oh my goodness, it's so much less expensive here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it was $800 to set it up. And that was 10 years ago, at least.
Yeah, it's still the same. It's $80 in California to set up the LLC. And then that first next full year will be $800. So California is expensive. Most other states, it's just a few $100. So might as well do it. It's worth it. You get that protection. You should just get it set up, start treating yourself like real business.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that separate bank account. And we've mentioned it in several podcast episodes because that makes a world of difference. I went from I would spend 2 weeks gathering all the information at the end of the year for my taxes because everything was all complicated and all together. And once it was separate and I was actually using that account as only business, then it becomes easy, right? All of those income, all of the expenses of that account is business related. So it's way easier once I did that, but it's like a mental hurdle almost. I have to do all these things to set up a business bank account, but it's not that hard once you take the steps and do it.
Yeah, it's really easy, especially if you have, if you already use Chase or Wells Fargo, it's easy enough. Once you get that LLC EIN, go into a branch, open it up. It takes just a few minutes. It's not that difficult at all, but it is a little bit of a pain to then start to move things over. And I'm not sure if we'll have time to talk about it during this episode, but then just understanding, well, what can I write off? What is a business expense versus what's not a business expense? That'd be next big hurdle of understanding when to use personal versus business, is just kind of understanding that.
One other thing I would put in this kind of beginning category, at least for me, that I thought was important was I split my PayPal accounts as well. So I have a personal PayPal account and I have a business PayPal account because I use PayPal for business way more than I do for anything personal. And I was getting confused in the same way because my PayPal account was getting both sorts of transactions to it. And so once I created a business PayPal account, again, it just takes some time and you need your information. Once I was able to do that, it's so much easier to keep things straight now because I almost never log into my personal account because I just don't use PayPal that much. But now under my business email address, I have my PayPal account and I know everything going on in there is business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what kind of records should craft business owners be keeping track of throughout the year? If they haven't done a great job, what's the best way to catch up?
Yeah, I would say the best first step is just using a good old fashioned Google Sheet or Excel spreadsheet to help you get caught up. One thing I would really encourage you not to do is go and set up a QuickBooks account and try to get organized on QuickBooks and so on. Not that QuickBooks is bad. All of our clients are on QuickBooks. But if you don't know QuickBooks, you don't understand how it works, it can get really confusing really fast. QuickBooks is way overblown for anything any of us would need. And we've just seen so many instances of people open up QuickBooks, they start doing some things. We go hold their books. In fact, this just happened a few weeks ago. A client came on and she said, "Hey, I've been doing my own QuickBooks for the last 3 years. Things are in great shape." We said, "That's amazing. Good job." And we start going through her transactions and cleaning things up. And we're looking at last year's books. It was like, whoa, hold on. In income, you categorize your credit card payment as income, and you categorize this as this. And she overstated her income by like $15,000. And it's just, and it's so easy to accidentally just mess up if you're not paying attention. So what I would say is, if you don't do that, just get a simple spreadsheet, and you can just have a column for the different payouts for the different platforms or partnerships or whatever you have going on. You have a separate column for all of your different income, the date that happened, and then in another column, just start listing out the date, the description, the amount of the different expenses that you've done. So if you haven't done that yet, to Angie's point, don't wait till the end of the year, because you'll spend 2+ weeks trying to do that. Right now, just go through that, take a day, start getting all of those things pulled out, go get that separate bank account, start moving everything over. That way, starting September 1st onward, it's just really clean, much easier to keep track. But just get that spreadsheet and start pulling all those things apart right now, and that will be hugely beneficial later.
It's so beneficial, like, for taxes and for knowing what you need to do at the end of the year, but it's also so beneficial to, like, have that data about your business. Like, this is how much I'm bringing in, and this is how much is going out, and this is what I'm spending a lot of money on. And you see things like, if it's just in your bank account and you're not looking at your bank account all the time, you may miss, hey, I'm not even using that subscription I have anymore. But, if you're marking it down in a spreadsheet, or you're going through, however you're doing it, it's like, oh, you can, like, really have a better picture of your business finances just without having to do any sort of deep dive. It's like, oh, here it is laid out in front of me. I am spending way more than I'm bringing in. I probably need to make some changes.
Yeah, I have two quick stories on exactly that point. One of our clients who signed up this year, when she was talking with me, I said, "Hey, how much did you make in 2024?" And she said, I think about 750,000. I was like, "Oh, wow, that's incredible. Good job." She's like, I don't quite know. Everything's mixed with my personal, but about 750,000. Okay. So we go through, we separate her business and her personal, get everything all put together. And I'm looking at her final P&L, and I'll call her Sarah. I said, "Sarah, you didn't make 750,000 last year. You made 1.2 million." And she's like, "Oh, oh, wow. Oh, okay." Just had no idea. And then she started asking, she said, "Oh, well, wonder if that has anything to do with like my ads I've been running on through Meta, Instagram, and so on." She makes her money through affiliate links. And I said, "Well, let me just do a quick analysis for you of looking at your ads and how much you've been spending and get sort of the return on investment on that." And for every dollar in ad spend, she was increasing her revenue by $5 or $6. And she had, once again, no idea, right? She couldn't make those decisions like you were talking about, Corey, where suddenly this year she's been ramping up her ad spend, and she's going to be well north of 2 million this year, of just like very simple things, understanding that. And then the other story I would mention is one of the original clients I was working with. She's still with us at Cookie. She was part-time creator, making decent revenue, had no idea how much she's making, to all just went to her personal, all the expenses went on her personal. Her very first question to me was, "I don't even know if I make enough money to go full-time. Like, can this actually replace my full-time salary?" And once we were able to get everything organized, she could see all of her income and expenses. Very quickly, she realized she actually was making enough money. She could quit her full-time job, and she's been full-time creator now for over 2 years. And she's making way more than she was before. But without that information right in front of her, she couldn't make a decision on, should I go full-time? Should I not? Like, you can't make those decisions if you don't have the information in front of you.
All right. So we talked a little bit about what is a business expense and what's not. But can you give like general idea of can I write this off for a business or can I not? So it's kind of some general rules.
Yeah, it's a great question because I think this is probably the hardest question us as entrepreneurs, especially within the creative space, have because it's very gray. And I'll just start with a little bit of a history lesson first before I actually answer your question. The last time the tax code was overhauled was in 1986, the year I was born, so almost 40 years ago, which is crazy. So almost 40 years ago is the last time that the tax code was completely overhauled. And it makes sense. If you could imagine trying to completely overhaul the tax code today, it would never happen, right? And so intentionally, when they overhaul the tax code every few decades, they need to last for 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years because it's just way too hard to change it in any type of political environment. And so when they made the tax code, it has to be flexible enough to change with technology, change with new industries, all of that good stuff. So what a lot of people don't realize is the tax code is actually extremely gray. And there are some very specific things in there about what you can and can't write off. But for the most part, 95% of all things, it's very gray. And the IRS just gives you very broad general guidelines. They say, you know, an expense is deductible if it's an ordinary part of your business. So you kind of need to spend this to run your day to day, and it's necessary part of your business. So if it's ordinary and necessary, it's most likely deductible. And that's the very broad general guidelines they give. And so how I like people to think about it is if you think about your cell phone, Apple or Google had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing that phone in materials, research, development, marketing, packaging, shipping, sales, all of these different things has been hundreds of millions of dollars to ship a new phone. They mark that way up and they sell it to you for a profit. And that's how they make their money. So all of the costs that go into making the phone is considered a deductible business expense. And accounting speak, for anyone who has accounting or finance friends, you can totally wow them this weekend. Just say it's your cost of goods sold, or COGS, if you want to sound really, really cool. So your cost of goods sold are all the expenses that go into making the product that you are selling. Now, in crafting, that might be literally the product that you are buying. Yeah, I'm looking at both your backgrounds. I still remember the very first call I had with Angie. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like your background is so incredible. So it might be those literal supplies that you see right there. But if you think about what you're selling, it might be a physical product, but also what you might be selling is your brand, your reputation, your audience, your engagement, the trust you have with your audience. Those are also things that you are selling as well. And so anything that goes into building that brand, building that audience, that engagement, it might be actual physical supplies that, you have your crafting supplies, but also might be other things. It might be, different type of subscriptions and things like that, which I'll go through in a second. But that's how we like to have people think about it at a high level: is anything you're spending money on that's building your brand, your business, those are going to be deductible. And so just kind of some general examples. I already talked about the actual supplies. Even if you use some of these supplies for personal, right? Like, I'm looking at Corey's background. Like, well, sometimes I use these scissors like for my own fun crafting projects. It's going to be 100% deductible for the business. Like, that's totally fine. But definitely your subscriptions that you use for your business are all going to be deductible. Same with, any type of microphone, camera, new cell phone, new computer, any of that is going to be deductible. Anything that's part of your home office. I'm looking at Angie's background and, shelving and organizational type of thing. All of that would be deductible. portion of your vehicle could be deductible if you use that for business purposes to go run different errands, go to different things. Any type of travel you're doing that's part of your business is going to be deductible. I tell people if you're working late and you have to order DoorDash, Uber Eats, like feel free to write that off as well. Um, Life of an entrepreneur is hard and long hours and so on. Make sure you're writing off your home internet, your cell phone bill. There are lots and lots of things that you can be deducting. And I think a mistake people make is not taking enough deductions because they're scared. What they end up doing is not giving themselves enough credit for what they're doing, and then they overpay in taxes when they should be taking these deductions.
That's really helpful because I think, sometimes I'll go and I'll work in a Starbucks or something. And I have to remind myself I can put my coffee and lunch here on my business card because I'm sitting here at the Starbucks and I am working. And so little things like that I wasn't deducting before I got started working with Cookie, I am deducting now, which is good.
And you talked about it. You said basically people are scared to deduct these things. Can you talk a little bit about why you shouldn't be scared to go ahead and take these deductions? Like, what is something that they can tell themselves that, like, yes, this is an actual business expense and I should be taking this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you think about just any normal business, uh, if they take home 25% of everything they make, that is a phenomenal profitable business. So they earn $100, they have $75 worth of expenses, and they take home $25. That would be an incredibly valuable, profitable business in pretty much any industry. And what sometimes we'll talk with our creators, if they make $100 and they're really scared to take expenses and they're nervous and they say, well, I mean, this is kind of personal. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I won't take this. And then they have $5 of deduction. So they have $95 of profit. But really, there's a lot of expenses that went into that. And I tell them, I say, trust me, like, one, that's not going to raise any red flags to the IRS. You're way overpaying in taxes and you're not giving yourself enough credit for the actual expense that goes into building a business. So people don't give themselves enough credit, I think, for the expenses that go into it. And I think a lot of people are just so terrified that in the middle of the night, the IRS is going to like pull them out of bed, haul them off to jail and say, you committed tax fraud. The reality is that's not how it works. Less than 1% of all taxpayers are audited each year. That's a stat from the IRS. Those who are audited are doing some pretty crazy things, or like there's some weird situations going on where it's like, whoa, this is raising a huge red flag. But as long as you're not taking really, really aggressive, deductions, you say, oh, well, I mean, technically my entire house is my contents. I'm going to run off my mortgage. I'm going to write off my whole car payment and my kids, nanny and write this and like just write off everything. Obviously that's tax fraud. But you should really think about and find ways to give yourself those deductions because they are there. And I think people just fail to realize the true cost, to your point, Corey, of just going to Starbucks and working out of there from a day. Absolutely. Like that's a cost. The time to drive there, the mileage, you should be deducting that. Actual cost of being there, all of those things you should be deducting and find those things.
And I think, the IRS doesn't have a lot of auditors, right? Like they don't have a huge budget and they're behind on everything right now. And so the odds of, a small handmade business, or a content creation business getting audited when they're just like a normal business, it's just, I feel like the chances are very low. I will say, like, I overpaid so significantly in taxes the year before I started Cookie Finance. I mean, we thought my income was going to be what it was. I had a big decline and I just kept paying taxes on what I thought I was going to make. And so, I mean, it was tens of thousands of dollars, lots of thousands of dollars. And it took them forever to get us our refund. And we thought the whole time, we're like, are we going to get audited? This is going to be a nightmare. No, it took them 2 years to get us our refund of this money. And they paid us interest on our money. So that was nice. We got a couple thousand extra dollars for not getting it back. But I'm like, man, if that didn't flag something, I feel like just, deducting your Starbucks is just not going to be the thing that triggers an audit. All right. Should we do our commercial break?
Let's do it.
All right. So today we have a little freebie for you guys. We basically are giving you a sheet to track your income and your expenses. So you don't even have to go out and make something. We have something for you. You can grab this by going to the QR code that Angie just put on the screen. There's also a running bar across the bottom if you are watching on YouTube. If you are not watching on YouTube and you're on the podcast, it's link.craftingcamps.com/worksheet. It'll also be in the podcast notes and in the
YouTube description.
Thank you. Man, my brain just completely went blank on the other place we put it.
So I wanted to encourage you, use this podcast to get started, right now today. So if you're like, okay, we already covered QuickBooks it's a big step. If you were like, a spreadsheet is too big of a step for me, just print this and start writing down your income and expenses. It'll at least be one step towards what you need to do to be organized, hopefully every single month in 2026. I'm hoping that for you. I'm crossing my fingers, but we thought we'd give you at least one step that wouldn't be, too overwhelming for you.
Yeah. I do this once a week on Fridays. I actually go through, and I have QuickBooks. Cookie does everything for me, but I still have my own spreadsheet that I have that shows me my expenses and my income, just for my own peace of mind. It's just easier for me to see it there sometimes because I have done it that way for so long, and I do it every Friday. And if I don't do it on a Friday, I'm full of regret. So I have it in my calendar as a thing I do on Fridays. So definitely schedule it out. Make sure you're okay, every Friday, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to go through my bank account. I'm going to write down my income and expenses so that you can really get a better picture of what your business is doing. All right, let's talk tools. We talked a little bit about tools earlier, but is there anything else? I want to touch on Wave because I know that it's free and I know that's where a lot of people start. Are there other simple apps, systems, other things you might recommend for people to stay organized? Is Wave a good place to start, or you're don't do that either? Tell us about it.
Yeah, Wave is not a terrible place to start. I would say of all the tools out there, Wave is probably the most intuitive of all of them. But once again, I've just seen too many instances of things not being done properly. And I think honestly, nothing beats, to your point with this worksheet of just going in, putting in your income, your expenses. That way you're not double counting things. You're capturing every last little thing. But Wave is not a bad option. It is free. I always tell people if something is free, that means it's free for a reason. So, I'm not sure what type of data or whatever they're selling, and maybe you don't care too much about that. But that always makes me a little bit nervous when I'm giving my financial information. That's just my own paranoia right there. But Wave, I would say of all the free accounting tools, would probably be the most intuitive. But honestly, if you're just getting started and you're just looking to kind of take that first step, I would just do it exactly as you described with that worksheet. I think that's a fantastic tool to use.
I think if you want to bump up to the spreadsheet, there are also probably free downloadable templates, that might help as well, and try not to get one that's super complicated. But if you just need something to kind of get you started and organized, try searching for maybe a free, Excel or Google Docs or Google Sheets template.
I was going to mention an app I use. It's called Mile IQ. It is paid for a year. However, every time I drive, it asks me, was this business or personal? And it is a lifesaver because I never remember to log the trips I take. And at the end of the year, I was always panicking. So every time I drive, it says, was this business or personal? And I, just hit business or personal. And at the end of the year, it sums all that up for me. And I don't have anything to panic about that I didn't log any of my drives this year. So
I am absolutely going to go download that now because I'm so bad at logging my mileage.
It is so good.
Mileage is really important. You can deduct 69 cents for every mile you drive, which can really add up. If you drive 10,000 miles during the whole year and, most of those are business, I mean, that could be $3,000 worth of deductions that you can be taking, which can be absolutely huge. So, uh, yeah, that is a great tool. Um, Anything you can do to just simplify keeping these items. One thing I would recommend not doing is worrying about every single little receipt. I know some people that is a big question we get is, well, how many receipts do I need to keep? I take a picture of everything, or I literally have a shoebox, full of receipts I'm keeping. That's not necessary at all. Once again, the likelihood you do get audited is so incredibly low. The likelihood that they do a full blown audit is even lower than that. And for the most part, when the IRS, if you were ever audited, what they're going to be paying attention to are the big ticket items. So they're not going to say, "Hey, Corey, I really want you to show me this receipt from this Starbucks." Like they're not going to care about that. What they would care about is, hey, you spent $3,000 at Best Buy. You claimed it as a business expense. What was this related to? If you have a receipt for those really big ticket items that aren't necessarily clear what it could be for, that would be helpful. Once again, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. You can just take a picture, save it somewhere on your computer, but don't worry about picking and logging every single receipt. Otherwise, you'll go crazy with your stuff. It's not necessary either.
I have a drawer of receipts, and mostly it's from when I've been traveling. So I'm like, eating out a lot. And I just like, sure, I need a receipt because it's a business expense. And now I have a terrifying drawer. So what you're telling me, Nate, is that I can probably just go recycle, like shred that whole drawer of stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this. It's gonna feel real good.
I also feel like the receipt paper over the years has gotten really bad and it only lasts like 6 months. So I go at the end of the year and I'm like, I can't even read this receipt.
Yeah.
So unless I've taken a picture of it, it's gone anyway.
And there's so many digital receipts now if you really need to find something. But if on your credit card statement, you're traveling, and I keep using Chick-fil-A because that's like my love language. And it says, Chick-fil-A, that's a meal. Like no IRS person's like, was this really a meal? You're like, well, yeah, obviously it's a meal. So like you don't need to worry about those type of things because the transaction on your credit card statement says enough about what it is. So yeah, you can flesh out a lot of those.
I'm really excited about it. That's gonna be like my afternoon activity today. Just I'm gonna be so happy.
All right, let's talk mistakes. What are the most common mistakes you see small business owners make at year end when it comes to their books and or taxes?
I know we already hit on this a little bit, but I just really want to reemphasize this because it probably is the biggest mistake. And that is not treating what you're doing as a business. Yeah, I think really when you change that mindset of this is a hobby versus business, you start to become a little more savvy. You take it a little more seriously. You start to think about these expenses in a different way. And it's a big shift, I think, of a lot of entrepreneurs when we first start. I mean, even when I first started Cookie, uh, for the first few clients I was bringing on, I'm like, okay, like this is just like a fun side thing. And like, even like I wasn't like really treated like a true business. That can be hard to kind of make that shift. As soon as you do, the way you treat things is going to make a big difference once you get to a point of just getting help from other people. I know this doesn't have anything to do with taxes, but one of our clients, they're YouTubers and they make about 350K a year from YouTube. And they're just so terrified. They're like, oh, like, should we get a video editor or not? We don't know. And like when you kind of put on that mindset of like as a business, like this is a business, this is not just a fun hobby. And you just, I don't know, you just start to think about things differently. So treating your business like a real business, that then shifts the mindset of how you are then going to look at deductions. And like we mentioned before, really analyzing all those different expenses. Luckily, it's not the end of the year yet, so you still have time to kind of put in some of these hygiene things in place. But really thinking about all of these deductions and finding ways to give yourself more deductions and giving yourself, uh, the ability to do that rather than being scared to do it. The IRS will never give you a gold star for overpaying in taxes. They'll say, thank you very much. And then like on your way. So might as well try to be as smart as you can with that. And then I'd say the final big thing is not being proactive with your tax planning, tax strategy, and just being very fly by the seat of your pants. And where that can kind of bite you in the butt, there are some things you can do to, be wise with your money, save money in taxes. If you're earning more than $125,000 a year from your business, you should most likely become an S corp. That can save you a lot of money in taxes. If this is truly kind of extra income for you, and this is all excess, great for retirement, things like that, you can open up retirement accounts for your business that are super, super easy to set up. And you can save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes by opening up a retirement account for your business and contributing there. So there's lots of things that you can proactively start to think about, do, plan ahead, rather than wait till April 14th. You say, oh, shoot, I need to file my tax return tomorrow. Let me think about how I can save money in taxes. It's too late at that point. When you're buying different things, if you're thinking about buying a new car, there might be some interesting tax consequences about whether you buy it December or January. It can make a big difference. It could be the difference between $2,000 or $3,000 in tax savings by buying a car. You're planning on buying a car already, but buying it in December versus January could have huge tax consequences for your business. So just being very proactive and kind of working with your accountant sooner than later to kind of think about some of these things.
And I would say, a lot of our people probably don't have an accountant, but that is the first thing that I hired out because as a creative person, I am not, numbers and I are just not, we're not friends. And I found accounting to just be really a difficult spot for me. And I mean, it would bring me to tears. Like it was just always a headache. There was no time when I was like, hooray, it's time to do my accounting. Even when I was like, I'm making a ton of money, yay. But it was like offset with like, wow, that was just like a trauma that I went through to try and get to understand what my business was doing. So if you do have a small business and you don't have an accountant yet, that might be one of the first things you want to think about hiring out, just hiring a bookkeeper, hiring a tax person, just somebody that can help you make those decisions, help you analyze what's going on in your business. Especially because I think creative people tend to not be numbers people. There obviously are exceptions, but that definitely was the first thing where I was like, yep, this has to go to somebody else for my own mental sanity.
A good accountant should be able to save you more money than they cost. And it might seem like an expense, but then when you might look back and say, oh my goodness, I was not taking all these deductions. I wasn't set up this way. I wasn't doing this properly. And then you start to see, and you see how much time and effort of taking 2 weeks to organize all of your expenses at the end of the year and the mental work. And it goes like that way, I think, once again, as you start to think of yourself as a real business, you start to do that, right? I mean, even we are accountants here at Cookie. We outsource our bookkeeping and taxes to someone else because I don't have the capacity to do that. I don't have the mental energy to do that type of thing. Your best use is not doing administrative tasks. It's not doing taxes. It's not doing bookkeeping. It's outsourcing that so you can grow your business even more by freeing up your time for those highest and best uses.
It's just like some of the things you mentioned, setting up the retirement account, like things like deducting things, part of your home on your taxes when you're running your business out of your house that you are not going to know. And for me, I wasn't comfortable enough as like an individual to set those things up and know that I was doing it right. And the accountant saved me money, yes, but also gave me that comfort level of like, okay, I did set this stuff up right.
And I feel like most accountants are like, and if for some reason you get audited, we will be there for you to walk you through the audit. So, I mean, obviously, we all agree here that we feel like being audited in this line of work is the chances are incredibly low. But just having that accountant, there also, yeah, that peace of mind is big. All right. So once the books are organized, how can business owners use that like information to actually grow their business?
Yeah, I use one of my examples already about understanding the trends in your revenue. One thing that we really like to kind of showcase and that we hope our clients will use is understanding just the seasonality of income sometimes. And, you know, you might see income spike during the end of the year, beginning of the year when people are unloading ad budgets and everything else and things are going well. Then all of a sudden things dip and then you go into like this depth of despair of, oh my goodness, like what am I doing? And it's just understanding kind of that seasonality. But as you can start to understand how the numbers kind of go up and down, you can then start to plan for, okay, how am I going to plan my expenses? How am I going to plan these campaigns? How am I going to plan to take advantage of when things are going up? And then how can I take advantage of when things are going down? Even for our business, as you can imagine, during busy season, things go way up and then things kind of go way down after busy season. And we are constantly look at our numbers and understanding, well, what does that mean in terms of how we allocate our time, our budgets, and so on. So I think having those numbers in front of you is going to allow you to start to understand, what does this mean for my business? Some other things that can really help you understand is you mentioned a little bit earlier, Corey, was about just understanding, where are you spending your money? You might not understand that you are spending way more than you're making, or you're making a ton, but you're spending just as much. But what you're spending money on isn't actually growing the business. And we see that a lot of, once again, when you don't treat it like a real business, money kind of comes in. You say, oh, great, this is, fun, extra money. Then money kind of goes out, but then you're not using it to actually grow and expand and build on the business or save for the future, whatever it might be. In when you can have those things right in front of you. And I'm actually a big fan of, I love that you actually like still each week go through all of these things by hand. Um, there's something to say about that, because then you have to almost like be accountable to yourself. Like, wow, I didn't realize I spent this much money on these things. Okay, I need to tighten that up. And like, was that really beneficial to the business? So the more and more information you have, the more and more that you're going to be able to make smart decisions to grow your business, become more profitable, and then actually be able to do some really cool things with it. So you don't just do this for 3, 4, 5 years. At the end, you kind of have nothing to show for it. It's like, that'd be like the worst thing you can do. So there's lots of amazing things, as you work with professionals and listen to this podcast and do other things, that as you understand those numbers, that is going to help you really drive your business.
I think being aware of what's going on in my business helped me also see like my business took a big dip over the last 2 years. Google AI is now just giving people answers instead of having them come to my blog, which is very annoying because, Google's trained itself on my content, which, is very annoying. But like I just saw this huge drop in a lot of ways. And keeping up with my income allowed me to make business decisions to be like, oh, I cannot afford to do this anymore. And so I was able to pivot in ways to keep my business alive without having to, shut my doors, which would be so sad. But it's because I was paying attention to it that I was able to see, that there was an issue. Because if I had just been letting, my accountant run everything and not looking and just assuming everything was going fine, I would be in a lot bigger mess than I am right now. So I think that's also, yes, you can see all the growth, but you can also see, hey, this is trending downward. What can I do to, to help that?
Yeah, a good example of one of our clients who did exactly that. She had a pretty good sized following on TikTok. She was one of those sort of early adopters on TikTok back during COVID. She got a really big following. She had some really viral things hit. He was making great money, and then the algorithm shifted, and all of a sudden her content kind of started going down, down, down. And same with her revenue was also kind of going down, down as well. And, I was kind of keeping an eye on her books and her revenue. She's very aware of everything that was going on. And all of a sudden one month, her revenue was zero. And I'll call her Jane. I thought something was wrong. I was like, Jane, something must got disconnected. I'm not sure like what happened. She's like, nope, I shut off my whole account. I shut everything down. I'm taking 3 months, and I'm going to take everything, all my numbers, all my financials, all my social media data, and I'm going to just reassess everything that was going on. And okay. I thought she was just like gone for good. And then all of a sudden, she started getting a little bit of revenue. I was like, oh, cool. All right, Jane is back. And then the revenue is going bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, her revenue was just crazy high. And after 6 months, the same amount of money that she's making in a year, she was making every single month. It was insane. So I called her up and I was like, all right, I just have to ask, like, what did you do during those 3 months? And very similar to you, she really looked at, okay, what was working? When I was posting, what were the posts that were really driving engagement? Okay, and here's how the algorithm has been changing. Here's what's favoring. Here's where I was making good monetization, and here's these different things. And she just took that time, really understood all the things behind it, then took all those lessons and just applied it at 100%. It has been insane what she's been doing. But she wouldn't have been able to do that, not just financial numbers, but just, understanding her reviews and her impressions and engagement and all of those things to really dive into it. It took a lot of work. It took her 3 months. She wasn't trained to do it. She had to ask a lot of help, but it turned around. So yeah, the more you know, the more you're able to make those good business decisions.
Yeah. We're never fans of putting your head in the sand.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that knowing your numbers can also help you make those investment decisions. So if you're thinking like, I need a new piece of equipment, or I want to hire some of this work out, I'm just doing too much. The first step of either of those decisions is can you afford it? And then can you get a return on that investment would be my second question. But knowing if you can afford it or not would mean knowing how much money you're making and how much you're spending every month to make that money.
All right. So before we go, Nate, can you share all about your Creator Business Essentials?
This is a new service that we are offering creators. We just launched it about a month ago. We do bookkeeping and taxes and all of that stuff for folks. But what we realized was that there were a lot of people who are just starting their journey or who are on the path to needing a full accountant, but aren't quite there yet. But they still want to get those hygiene things in place, start to take their business seriously. And so what we created was a service called Creator Business Essentials. We get you an LLC, we get your LLC set up, we get you an EIN, we take care of your filing with it's called a BOI. We take care of that for you. You get a business checking account as well. We've partnered with a well-established 100-plus-year-old bank in Nebraska. We are just kind of like the interface with that, but we've partnered with that so you can get a business checking account through us as well. So you can kind of get all of those foundational things in place, and it's just $29 a month to kind of get yourself on track with that, as well as a virtual mailbox. So you don't have to give out your personal information, it's not spread everywhere, which is really important as a creator.
I mean, I pay for a P.O. box, and that is several $100s a year. So, I mean, this feels like an awesome fix. If you want to check out the Creator Business Essentials, go ahead and go to link.craftingcamps.com/cookie. That's COOKIE. And you can use code crafting for profit. That's all one word, crafting for profit, to get 50% off.
And we are going to put that link in the podcast notes as well as the YouTube description, or if you're on YouTube, QR code in the corner if you know how to use QR codes.
All right, Nate, thank you so much for sharing your advice today. I think this is going to be really helpful for people, especially all of those people out there, because we know you're out there because we were once you guys who are just so disorganized with their finances and they need to just take those first steps. Because sometimes, especially as a creative person, finances are just so overwhelming. And I think you gave us some really practical advice to get started.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more crafters find us and grow their businesses and learn about finances, obviously. And if you have a friend, they've been stressing about year-end taxes. What am I going to do? They just started their business. Send them this episode right now because they need this advice. As always, thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time on Crafting for Profit Live.